The Jane Austen Literacy Foundation Winning Stories 2024. The Dawn Chorus by Anne Evans. The House Next Door by Terry Kerins. And The Tram Stop by Scott Santarossa. Read by Alison Larkin. Chapter 1. Winner, The Dawn Chorus by Anne Evans. Listen, Ronnie. That's a chaffinch. She's saying good night. Isn't it beautiful? He didn't answer. He never did if it meant saying something positive. Dawn pulled her cardigan a little tighter around herself. Late September, and the evening was cool. Autumn was creeping in. She gazed upwards at the trees in her garden, at the leaves already turning that wonderful burnished gold colour. The birds were silhouetted now amongst the branches, but still vocal, whistling and chattering about their day, what they'd been up to, chirruping back and forth, their sweet voices so clear in the calm of twilight. If you listened carefully, their bird song was made up of syllables, just like human speech. Often she could almost work out what they were saying to one another. Had a good day? Yes. Ate too much. Need to keep your strength up? We're leaving for warmer shores at the weekend. They were real gossipers, especially the blackbirds. They always had so much to say. And the robins, although they were often the harbingers of bad news. How do they know, Ronnie? Dawn said vaguely to her husband. Do they have some sixth sense? What are you on about? Ronnie grumbled, stacking his spade and rake in the shed, clanging the metal deliberately, Dawn thought, to startle the birds. It worked. They fell silent for long minutes, and she could imagine their little heads twitching, eyes alert, watchful, feathered bodies becoming sleek, ready to take flight if the clanging metal was some sort of threat. It wasn't. Just her husband being a killjoy, as usual. Dawn wished he could hear what she could hear, wished he'd stop for a while and listen. Really listen. He wouldn't. He wouldn't even try. The only time he ever mentioned the birdsong was when the wood pigeons were cooing at the break of day, and that irritated him for some unknown reason. Complained that their blooming racket woke him up. Dawn thought there was nothing nicer than being woken by birdsong. Certainly nicer than being woken by a long-faced misery of a husband, whinging and moaning, wanting his breakfast and never thinking to say thank you, never thinking she might like someone to make her a meal, or even a cup of tea occasionally. Fat chance of that happening. He was of the old school. Women these days wouldn't stand for it. She should have put her foot down years ago, but it was too late to change him now. The only thing they had in common these days was the garden. He liked food, so he tended the garden. But it was her who wandered around the garden centres buying the plants and bulbs and seeds. He did the planting, the watering, moaned about the snails and the birds, then occasionally brought the harvested crops into her kitchen for her to add into a stew or a pie or make soup. He ate whatever she made, every last morsel, which was commendable, she supposed. He was green-fingered, amazingly. But it made her quite sad, wandering around garden centres on her own. These days, garden centres counted as a family day out. Couples went shopping for their gardens together. They discussed what to grow, bought ornaments and furniture and lights. She didn't ask him to go with her any more. There was only so many put-downs you could handle. Only so many times she could listen to him mocking her for wanting some company. Years ago, when she first began to realise that he really didn't love her anymore, it hurt beyond belief. But gradually, she grew accustomed to his unpleasantness, his cutting remarks. It stopped hurting. She discovered her own happy places, like country walks, enjoying nature and her garden. It was just a shame that he was there too. Occasionally, she shopped online. You could find the more unusual plants, and he paid for everything. He probably wasn't aware that everything he planted was bought using his credit card, but what did it matter anyway? He never researched the plants she bought for him. At one time, she would write the Latin names on wooden sticks, but he pulled them up, told her to stop showing off. So she stopped telling him what she'd bought, or rather what he'd bought. He didn't know he was growing Cisuta, or Digitalis purpurea, or Antropa belladonna. Best of all, she liked buying quirky bird feeders and wind chimes. Ronnie hated wind chimes. He said their incessant tinkling drove him mad. Often, she longed to fill the garden with wind chimes, hang them off every tree, off every branch, then let the wind howl through so they tinkled and chimed and drove him insane. It quickened her heartbeat when she let her imagination run free. "We know. We understand." It was a robin whistling close by, although she couldn't spot him in the dusk. But his whistling came out in such clear syllables, she literally heard the high-pitched words, "We know. We understand." There it was again. "We know. We understand. Old misery, old misery, old misery." A blackbird joined in, his whistling clear as a bell. A little chuckle of laughter escaped Dawn's lips. "What's so funny?" Ronnie snapped, clicking the shed padlock into place. She was still smiling to herself. "Oh, it was just something a little bird told me." He stared at her. There was always a mean expression on his face these days. "You're crackers, you are. They'll be carting you off to the funny farm if you're not careful." That might be nice, Dawn thought to herself. People being funny all day long, better than being miserable. Despite knowing she wouldn't get a smile back, she smiled at her husband. "Anything for the pot? We're down to our last few radishes, and your string beans look ready for picking." "It's too dark now. You should have said earlier. I'll do it tomorrow." "That's fine. And I see there's a lovely crop of black currants. I'll mix them with some apples and make a crumble. You like a nice fruit crumble, don't you, Ronnie, with custard?" She saw his eyes light up. She turned and strolled back to the kitchen. As she did, she caught sight of the robin. It looked directly at her, cocked his head to one side, and she could have sworn that he winked. With the morning came the dawn chorus, a whole choir of birdsong, the repetitive "I love you of the collared dove, the harsher rattle of the magpie, and the sweet repetitions of the song thrush. Ronnie had an old tin box filled with stones. He marched outside, rattled it to scare the birds away, and came back for his breakfast, a mean grin on his face. "Ronnie, why did you do that?" Dawn frowned at him. "They were only saying good morning to one another." Flopping down in his chair, he jabbed his knife towards her. "You're not Dr. Dolittle, you know. Do you honestly think you can talk to the birds?" "No, but it's fun sometimes, just imagining what they're saying to each other." "This is fun." He cut her short. "Peace and quiet while I eat my breakfast." There was no point in arguing and no pleasure in talking to him. Dawn fell silent, indoors and outside. She washed up the breakfast dishes and only spoke again as he put on his gardening boots ready to go outside. "Don't forget to pick me lots of blackcurrants for that crumble." Yeah. He dismissed her with an irritated shrug of his shoulders. Later, she took him a bowl to fill with berries. The robin flew down and landed on the fence, turning directly to her. His arrival stopped Dawn in her tracks. It faced her square on and began to chirp. "I know what you're planning." Dawn interpreted its whistling. Clear as day, it said, "I know what you're planning." There was accusation in its voice. "I have to warn him." It flew off. Not far, however. Just to Ronnie's vegetable patch, where it landed on the spade handle. Dawn wandered over and put the bowl down near the berries. The Antropa belladonna berries. The plant he bought online with his credit card. The plant he didn't bother to read up on. The plant he grew, which she knew nothing about, should anyone ask. "You have company, Ronnie," Dawn said, nodding towards the robin perched so close. It began to whistle. A high-pitched, whistling chirrup. It was definitely warning him. "Don't pick the berries! Don't pick the berries! If you do, you will die! If you do, you will die!" "Go on! Clear off!" Ronnie snapped, waving his trowel at the little bird. It stood its ground. "Don't pick the berries! Don't pick the berries! If you do, you will die! If you do, you will die!" "It's talking to you, Ronnie!" Dawn tried to tell him. "You should listen to him." He waved a hand at the bird, scaring him away. "You're the daft one around here, Dawn. Now pass me that bowl if you want these berries for the crumble." It was later that evening, at dusk, when the robin returned. After the day had passed, after their dinner and pudding, Ronnie didn't eat much, 1 spoonful. After the ambulance had come and gone, after the condolences, "What a terrible tragedy! How foolish for planting deadly nightshade and thinking the berries were black currants. You don't think he was trying to poison you, Dawn?" "Goodness, no. We were very close." Dawn closed her mind to the events of the day and listened instead to the breeze tinkling the wind chimes, and the robin who swooped down onto the fence again. It looked straight into her eyes, opened its little beak, and chirruped, "He should have listened." "Yes," Dawn agreed softly. "He should have listened." Chapter 2. Finalist. The House Next Door, by Terry Kerins. Alarm clock, radio, kettle, toaster, shouts of "Where are my shoes?" answered by "Where you left them?" Little feet running up and down the stairs, car doors slam, engine starts. I look at my digital alarm clock and it reads 8:07. Next door they are late leaving this morning. Damn these paper-thin walls. I roll onto my back and close my eyes, willing sleep to return. But the sounds of next door have frightened it away for today, and I am left with the yawn of the day, waiting to be filled. I know the postman is on his way by the barking of the one-eyed dog across the road, a cross Jack Russell who thinks everyone is its enemy. Half a minute later, the hum of the electric post van. I cock my ear for the rattle of the letter flap, for a whisper of paper landing on the carpet inside my front door. No matter how hard I strain, I rarely hear one. It's all online now. My son does the bills for me, online. I boil the kettle, a jaunty one that sits on the hob and whistles. It keeps me company as I turn on the morning talk show. The regular presenter is off air today, and it is the Canadian girl, the one with the strong accent who talks about herself too much. I switch it off again as the butter knife scrapes across the gravelly surface of my toast. I open the back door. The late April sunlight comes in and plays the piano. Notes glinting off the water drops on the draining board. Birds are arguing in the trees that back onto my garden. A murder of crows, well named, and I wonder what slight has been done and what avian punishment is being doled out today. In the house next door, there is a wind chime, an eerie sound that gets under the door of my dreams and makes me feel like I'm sleeping in a horror movie. A black and white one where a woman screams into the screen. I close the door again to block out the tinkle and wonder if the owners like the sound it makes or if they have grown so accustomed to it that they don't notice it anymore. Like Holmes on the flight path not noticing the planes playing noughts and crosses in the sky above them, day and night. Just after midday, the supermarket delivery van makes its way down the narrow street. The name of the supermarket is painted in its red and blue and white lettering. The engine is cut and the shutter rolls up. I watch the delivery man. He is the regular one, the one who knows my name and knows to put the boxes at a height so that I don't have to bend to empty them. I wait for the sound of the doorbell, then wait to the count of 6. "Hello, you're early today." I say, "I'm just in from the park." "Stunning morning for it." "Yes, indeed." He lifts the 2 blue crates into the kitchen and places them on the table. Then he consults the 1-page list. They had no pink lady, but they substituted them with royal gala. "That's okay," I say, thinking of the first bite of the pink lady and the irreplaceable crispness of the fruit. "Otherwise all good, I'll help you unload." "Oh, no need to do that," I say, looking at the sparse contents of the first box. I take out a net of oranges, the apples, and a packet of digestive biscuits and a small sliced pan. They join my breakfast dishes on the table, and the delivery driver looks out the kitchen window, shielding me from my shame. My own sparse existence. "Lovely spot you have here," he says, looking into the sunny garden. "Yes, I'm very lucky," I say, taking the cheese slices and single litre of milk from the refrigeration box. "Well, see you next week, Mrs. M," he says, lifting the boxes easily. "Yes, have a good week. Don't work too hard," I say. I hear him sliding the boxes into the van, the shutter slamming, his door closing, and the van off down the road. I sit at the kitchen table and look at my shopping. Shopping I could easily get myself in the local convenience store, but my son set this up too online during lockdown to make it easier for me. The pandemic was over. It had stolen my husband, and now what little was left of my life was being eroded by its aftermath, by online this and online that. I look at the royal galas and shake my head. It was not okay, really. My daily pink lady is one of the things I look forward to cutting it in half and then into quarters with a sharp knife, to whittling out the pips and then dividing the quarters again to make 8 nearly equal slices, my sharp bite cracking the air in the quiet kitchen. In the evening, they come home together next door, car doors slamming, little feet running up and down the stairs, rattle and bang in the adjacent kitchen, the sound of a blender and the oven fan. Damn these paper-thin walls. My dinners come in a box. 7 ready meals, 7 different dishes, 1 for each day of the week. They come from some gourmet meal company, and my son delivers the box himself each Monday evening. "Only the best for my mother," he says. "Will you come in?" I say, "Ah, not today, Ma, they need me at home." I heat my meal for tonight in the microwave and listen to the bong, bong, bong of The Angelus on the television. Images of people at peace in their lives on the screen. A mother pushing a child on a swing, and an elderly man gardening, face angled at the sky, looking for God or some other meaning. I eat with my plate on my lap in front of the news. Old news that has bulletined hourly throughout the day. A little later, the theme music of the first soap opera of the evening. I gobble it up like I did the chicken tikka masala, living the characters' dramas and feeling their storm of emotions without having to leave the house. Bedtime next door. Little feet running up and down the stairs fade to quietness for another day. The hum of the television, the muted voices of the people next door, my son and his wife, so close at the other side of the wall, watching their own shows, living their own private dramas. Damn these paper-thin walls. When I go to bed, I close my eyes and listen. I put my hand on my side of the wall and wonder if he put his on his side, would he then realize my presence? Would he feel my warmth? Would it feel colder on his side of the wall if my hand was no longer there? Sounds of the day change to sounds of the night. The odd car on the road, the tick-tick-ticking of the heating turning off. As I lie with my hand on the wallpaper, I think of getting a sledgehammer and using all my strength to knock through the paper-thin walls, of letting the light and my family spill into the shared space. I think of the mix of my quiet with their busy and how it would make the perfect balance. I think of home-cooked meals and of using the ready meals as a lazy option occasionally. I think of all these things and feel that if I listen very closely, I can make out the inhale and exhale of my son and daughter-in-law through the paper-thin wall in the bedroom of the house next door. Chapter 3. Finalist. The Tram Stop by Scott Santarossa. The young man settled himself against the tram stop ahead of his usual 3-minute wait. He was predictable, unlike this notorious Melbourne climate. I noticed that today he wore a grey woolen beanie and matching scarf. His large white headphones were earmuffs, shielding his ears from the icy tempest. Since summer abandoned us for the Northern Hemisphere, I have been taking the 7:50 a.m. tram to Foundations of Human Physiology instead of walking. It was sadistic and ironic that the topic of this early morning lecture was sleep physiology. The singular blessing in this already Arctic autumn was that my student accommodation was exactly a 7-minute tram ride and walk from the lecture theatre, which on days like today I could narrow down to 6. When I transitioned to commuting, I was surprised to find out that he had been taking that tram since the beginning of the semester from my very stop. I had first noticed him in the front row of the lecture theatre in week 1. On that late summer day, his white linen shirt was unbuttoned halfway down his chest, revealing his sculpted pectoralis muscles, combining at the sternum, covered by his smooth tanned skin. His jawline was graced with a faint beard which framed his focused masculine face. His long hair was placed in a loose, yet still meticulously shaped bun. I always made sure to sit on the far left of the lecture theatre, the perfect subtle vantage point. I started to wish that he would look at me with the same intense way he fixated on his laptop, as if he were watching a movie or television series. This was particularly mysterious to me, as even the highest achieving nerds did not care enough for physiology so early in the morning. In the subsequent weeks, while everyone else's fashion sense collectively morphed into a cosier version, his evolved as the autumn fashion season commenced. I could only ever marvel at him from my seat in the lecture hall or from my spot on the overly crowded tram. Although my more confident friends would have effortlessly broken the ancient, unspoken tram commute rule of avoiding all contact with strangers based on recognising him from class, it was a vast leap out of my comfort zone. I was enamoured, but from afar. Normally there would be at least 10 people waiting for the 7:50, but today it was strangely quiet, just him and me. I shrugged off the feeling until it got closer, and by 7:49 I was panicking. I could usually see the iconic vessel sliding its way through the traffic-laden high street by now. He also looked up from his phone, eyebrows furrowed, gazing up the line. I quickly searched on my phone for any news of the disruption. Due to planned roadworks, this part of the line was down, and I had no choice but to walk to class on this not-so-lucky day. That explains it. I was about to leave when I noticed he was still looking for the tram that would never come. He would be standing here all day if I just left. This was my chance to speak to him, to break the ice. I decided to say something. "Excuse me, but the tram isn't coming this morning. I saw you from my lecture. We will have to walk." No response. Not even an acknowledgement that I spoke. His gaze was locked on the horizon. He must have the noise-cancelling feature turned on. I walked in front of him and repeated what I said. This time he saw me, merely nodding with a smile before returning to his stare. Shaking my head, I waved at him and said it again. He pointed with 2 fingers at his ear, indicating that he was wearing headphones and did not want to be disturbed. He continued looking at me. He suddenly looked down at his phone and started to furiously type. I can put up with being ignored, but this was just rude. My attraction to him was diminishing so fast that I decided to abandon my attempt and leave without him. I was about to turn when he flipped his phone, the bright screen in my face. "I am deaf." I shuddered, a pallor sweeping across my face. Although I did a weekend course of Australian Sign Language, a colossal fog suddenly covered the part of my brain that held this critical information. The expression on his face was cool and confident as my cheeks went from pearl white to a deep scarlet. It dawned on me then that when I thought he did not want to be disturbed, he was instead gesturing the sign for deaf. I retrieved my phone and typed what I had said down, showing him. His eyes widened before checking the time. He started to type again before holding up his phone. "I have not walked there before. Can I follow you?" I nodded, eyeing his phone in hand, which would most definitely contain a map application. He bared his teeth. His cheeky, beaming smile made me feel as though I had known him since birth. Suddenly, a flash of memories entered my mind. Holding my palm facing upwards, while gently touching my thumb and middle finger together, I opened my hand while lowering it slightly. "Ready?" His face lit up and he stashed his phone in his pocket. "You know Austen?" he signed. Thumb and first finger lightly touching, I tapped my chin twice. "A little," I replied. His arms swerved as a flurry of hand gestures filled the space before me, a stage where his fingers were a crowd of actors interacting with each other. I was held in a trance by the enchanting words he was weaving in the air. Abruptly, he stopped. The spell vanished and I became starkly aware of my mortal reality. As I recovered, I realised he had been talking to me. Worse, he was asking me a question and expecting a reply. I felt exceedingly awkward, which worsened as the seconds progressed into what felt to be an eternity. His smile widened, somehow reading my mind that I had no idea what he had just said. His confidence seemed to dissipate the frigid air, making me realise that awkward silences did not exist in his world. I blinked and looked at his phone, which said, "Do you live at the student accommodation? It is nice to meet someone who lives there and studies my course too." I smiled, replying on my phone, "I do. Nice to meet you too. I am Luke. I am RJ." We walked together through the bitter cold to the lecture hall as I listened to his texts about life growing up as a deaf Filipino-born Australian, why he studied physiology and basketball, his other passion in life. The few times we brushed up close as the pathway narrowed warmed my flesh. I joined him as the lecture commenced, where he unfolded his laptop. After all these weeks, my curiosity was finally about to be satisfied. Which series was he watching? He removed his beanie to let his shoulder-length hair release, revealing 2 cochlear implants that perfectly matched his shade hidden behind the strands. The background image of his computer showed a pristine beach with cerulean water, framed by palm trees. In the centre was RJ, shirtless, with his rippling muscles on display, his smile bright as ever. In his embrace was a stunning girl, whose flowing curly hair seemed to blend into the texture of the waves behind her. My stomach lurched. I had not even considered that he could be straight, let alone the possibility he could be in a relationship. I tried to hold it together, but the ventricles of my fragile teenage heart were splitting at the seams. The interpreter's face lit up the screen as the lecture began. Rather than following the lecture slides, I found myself counting all of the light fixtures in the room, noting the broken clock on the wall was still not fixed, and that the lecturer's shirt collar was folded in on itself as he obviously struggled to make himself presentable so early this morning. I saw that RJ was incessantly focused on the interpreter, unaware that I was imploding from shame, embarrassment, and the loss of being downgraded to just a buddy. Having pined after him for so many weeks and building up this relationship in my mind, surely this was a normal physiological reaction that my body would need time to process. I could not recall any particular lectures on the body's reaction to unrequited love. Perhaps that would be covered next week. As the lecture finished, I quickly packed my things, nodded at RJ, and briskly made my way to the exit. RJ waved, his eyebrows contorted the same way as when he was looking for the tram. I made myself busy with my university work, burying myself in the library over the next few days. I tried to forget RJ as being someone to ask out on a date. I was now starting to become comfortable with thinking of him as a friend. Arriving home late, I saw a note was concealed under my door. I unlocked the door, reached down, and opened the letter. "Are you free for dinner and a movie tomorrow? RJ." This has been the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation Winning Stories 2024. The Dawn Chorus by Anne Evans, The House Next Door by Terry Kerins, and The Tram Stop by Scott Santarossa. Read by Alison Larkin. Copyright 2024, the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation. Production copyright, the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation and Alison Larkin Presents 2025. Thank you for listening.